All right, we're back. It's COMP228, week 9, lesson 9, part 1, and it's Java programming at Centennial. All right, let's talk about this a little bit, where we were before, what we're doing. So I've got my Eclipse up right now, and where last we left off, we're going to kind of continue a little bit of this stuff from lesson 8. And then tonight, what I'm going to do is focus on Java effects, all right? We're going to concentrate on that a little bit tonight. Okay, so let's get into this. So if I look at what I've got going on right now, and if I look at there's a couple files I've got. One of them is this example window file, right? Which has like my name, my goodbye button, my age text field, and to-do combo box. That's to-do combo box is this thing that we kind of added in, right? This event listener. And then the idea here is when I click the to-do combo box, right, which is down here, right? If the event get add sources to do combo box, then we want to add on the content pane one of the array items, right? And which confused the crap out of some people. They were like, I don't understand arrays. I don't understand how, you know. We have to kind of add it in the right location because originally kind of added one on top of the other or below. It has to kind of go below where we want it to go. So let's run this thing and see how this works. So we have this. And then if you notice, I just made a really quick and dirty kind of thing where I kind of click 2, and then all of a sudden you have like this item that you can do just dynamically by just clicking this button and adding as many as I want, right? There's a bit of a problem to here, right? You can see that there's quite a bit of little things that I'm adding on here. This is similar to what you would do. We have to redesign this because obviously this isn't the right location, right? I probably want to put it somewhere over here. That's the first thing. And somehow I'm not getting anything for 1. I should get kind of a default. If I have 1 that's preset up there, right, which is something that I've set up, right? And it says it's based on the get selected index, right? So it should be at least 1 that I'm adding in, at least, right? So even if I have this set up to 1, that's what it should be set up. And the other thing is, what happens when do I keep adding them? Are they going to continue adding on here? Is it going to be forever? Every time I change my selected index, does it change? How does it work? So this is just kind of our little example, right, to help you out with assignment 4. So let's go back to the design view and take a look and see what we have. Certainly we can do this by, instead of doing it like this, we can do it by hand, but I just want to move this object, and again, we're using absolute layout as opposed to the way that we have. I want to move this somewhere else, and probably away from it, like over here, is going to be where it's going to be. I have to also kind of put some kind of label as to what this is, right? And I'm making a little to-do list in my example, right? That's what I'm making. So I'm adding in items on my to-do list, right? And then my to-do list is going to appear here. And my click me button doesn't have any real reason for being right now, right? I don't need to put this in there. But for now, I'm going to move it out of the way so I can actually, have my form elements come into place in here. I'm going to kind of also shrink this down just a touch, just to kind of make it all fit, right? I'm not going to get rid of it yet, but I'm going to put it down here like this, and I'm expecting my form elements to come underneath here like this. Okay, so that again, if I was to look at the positioning right now, this is 99 by 76, right? And the height of the window is 28. I need a little bit of space, right? And then, so 28 and 76 is where the next one should go, moving down. And how did I find that out? If you look at the bounds, I'll open this up a little bit, you can see that the x-coordinate is 99, so that it starts at the top left corner of the screen when you start drawing absolute layout, right? You move from the top corner of the screen across until you get to 99, right? Now, if I want to make these a little bit more even, let's change this number from 99 to 100. Right, same thing with this one. I might as well change this one so it's 100 as well, just to make it so it's like it's just an even number for us to play with, right? So starting off at 100, okay? And then from there, what I want to do is, and again, this is an absolute layout, right? I'm moving down to 70, to the first one is 35 down, right? The top left corner of my, my control is where it's starting off to draw, is 35 down. And the next one is 76 down. That's kind of a weird number. 35 and 76, right? So we can kind of make them as even as we'd like, just to kind of coordinate. The other thing is that I want to match this up with what I've got going on over here. So you see that my enter name and my enter age, labels are also here, right? They're also at a specific point, right? So what are they at? So they're at 5. Both of them are at 5 and 5, and one is at 41 and the other one's at 82. So it looks like every 40 is where it should be. So if we were to look at the same kind of layout, and by the way, from a height perspective, they're only 23 in height. Let's make them even in terms of height-wise with our text box, right? So our text box right now, as an example, our text field is 28 high. Let's make our labels also 28 high. If I click both of them, right, I can't really do it this way. I have to click one at a time. So I've one and then change my height to 28 just to make it the same, right? And let's check this height and make that the height of this one also 28. So it's not 16. Like one is a different height than the other one. So now they're the same height, right? And this way I can make them kind of aligned with my text box exactly, right? So I know that this one is 35. This one is well, the height's 29. I don't know why that one is, and the height is 28. So let's make these. Let's make the height instead of 29 or whatever, some weird number. Let's make it 30. Just so all of them should be 30 height, including the labels. So again, all I'm doing is coordinating my labels and everything else so that they're evenly matched. And this is part of the difficulty. Changing everything, calculating stuff, converting from integer to string and all that, that's kind of easy to do. It's the other pieces that are hard. So this is my y coordinate is 35. Might as well make this the same for my 35 so that it's kind of aligned properly. Notice that they're both aligned at the same space now. And same thing with this one. This is at 76 for now. It's a kind of a weird number. Let's make this go to 80. There's 80. And then this one we're going to put this at 80 as well. Okay, so there it is. So we got a bit of space here, but now it's kind of evenly proportioned, right? For this control here, right now my height is 38, but there's also space around it, if you notice, right? So some space around everything. I want my controls to kind of fall in here, and I know it has to be at least, if I start at 80, like the height is, or the level, the y coordinate is 80, and I know that it's 30 high, that's 110 to go here, right? And if I started 35 here and I went to 80, right, I added 45 to the next row. So that's where my formula. My formula is going to change, so it adds 45 every time, right? Starting at 80, right? I got to add 45. So that's my next row. My next row will appear 80 plus 45 every time, right? So let's take a look at that in my code. So I'm going to go back to my source code, and I've modified some of these now so that they're a little bit more even. But down here in my code, let's look and see what I'm doing. I'm saying, just to pull this a little bit more open so you guys can see it. Okay, I'm saying this. I'm saying as I loop through, right, I add a new text field to my array list, right? And what I want to do is set the bounds of my my array list. I'm using this index to specify the element in my array list. Each element is going to be labeled from 0 on, right? We're going to start at 0, 1, 2, and so on. And as I add things, it says the x coordinate is 99. Remember, we changed it to 100. And the next one would be 80, right? Plus my index, whatever the index is, and it's 0 times 30. That doesn't make any sense because if the index is 0, right? As an example, my index 0 doesn't mean that's the index of my which is, it says, as you see, it says less than or equal to that's get selected index. So if I start at 0, right, I want to go to I want to start it at 1. That's what I really want to start it off, right, because I want to have at least one of them in there, right? And it can't be at 76 plus whatever my index number is times 30, because 0 is not going to do anything. And when it loops through the first time, it's not going to add anything, right? So that's kind of a weird little loop I made, and I got to kind of correct that a little bit. So what's another way to do it? If I didn't want to use an array loop like this, right? Or if my index, here's another thing, index starts at 0. I don't want to start at 0. My selected index, right, is going to be like 1, right? So it's going to go from, let's say, whatever my index is, to 1 to 2 to 3. And as I continue to add them, right, as I change my to do combo box, if I modify it, what I want to do is I want to wipe out my array list. That's what I want to do, and redo my stuff, right? I want to kind of replace everything in there. Is there a way I can remove from my content pane? Because I know I can add to my content pane. How do I remove it? Right? So let's try this out. Because all I'm doing here is adding. So first let's put this, first of all, it's got to be at least 80. I know that. And I'm not adding 30. 30 is like the minimum height. It looks like it's going to be 45 that I'm going to add in from a nice proper spacing perspective. So that's another one. The height can't be 28 anymore. It's going to be 30. I know that the height of each of my elements is going to be 30 with a width of about 131. That's kind of weird too. Let's go back to my design view for 1 second more to look at this. So the width, it looks like it's 131. You notice they're each 131. Let's make that an even number because that makes more sense for me, right? So instead of 131, let's move this down to either higher or lower. It can't be the, one weird number like this. Let's make it 130. Same thing with this one. Now you're not going to see a change because we're talking about 1 pixel difference, which isn't a big change at all. Go back to my source code. Notice now that they're all 130. And I'm going to go back down in here for this little example and change this to 130. So they're all even. So now it makes sense. So again, this is the width and the height, right? That I'm setting the bounds of this new element that I'm adding into my text field array list, and then I'm adding that element into my each of my lists, right? So onto my content pane, right? So just for a test, if I wanted to remove it, what would be the command? Can I do this? This kind of underscore content pane dot remove. Is that possible? And the answer is yeah, you can. Right? You've got to remove, but you also got to talk about the index, right, of the content pane. Like what I'm adding onto the content pane by index. Well, that's not going to work, right? Because I don't know what's on my content pane. My content pane is being added onto as a display list. That's what it is, right? So I have a bunch of elements that I'm adding onto the content pane one at a time, right? What are the content pane elements right now? Let's just, first of all, let's leave it at index for now. I'm not gonna run this thing, but I'm gonna go back to my design view. So how many elements do I have in the content pane right now? Can anyone count them? Come on, guys, look up here. 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. And here's the question, right? We didn't add them in this order, right? The content pane isn't added in like this, right? How we were adding them is first we added this one. I think maybe we added the enter name and enter text. I may have moved around like that a little bit. Then we added the click me button. Then this one. This is actually the 7th one. This one here, and we don't know what element it is. If you look here, it's not like it tells you what element it is in my in the content pane, right? It doesn't tell you that at all, right? So an example of that is even if I went to advanced properties here on the right, of this window, and I pulled it down, it's not like somewhere in here it's going to tell you, oh yeah, this is index number 5 or 3 or 2 or 7 of my content pane. Remember, my content pane is the container, and I'm adding different components on the container as if they are elements or they're objects, if you will, right? So I need to keep track. Right? I need to keep track of all the elements of my container, and this is my container, this content pane, right? So let's look at some other possibilities. I can't do it that way, right? Not so easily anyway. How about, but I want to remove my components, right? So I want to kind of put, remove. What other kind of remove methods are there? Because remember, remove probably is going to be an overloaded method, right? I can remove index. I can remove the component that I'm looking for, whatever the component is, right, from my container. I can remove my menu component, pop-up. I can remove all, remove ancestor, remove component listener, container listener, and so on. There's a bunch of different ones. If you notice down here, if I keep looking, for all the ones that I want to remove, and most likely it's not going to be any one of those down there. It's probably going to be either this index, if I knew the index number, and notice how it says 48% chance that, or 0.48% chance that it's going to be that. What about this one, remove component? So if I put that in, it says on the left here, remove the specified component from this container. This method also notifies the layout manager to remove the component from this container's layout via the remove layout component method. Okay, remove layout component method. This method changes layout related information and therefore invalidates the component hierarchy. If the container has already been displayed, the hierarchy must be validated thereafter in order to reflect the changes. What the hell does that mean, right? I'm just talking about these are the things that it tells me, right? See also validate, remove by integer, and invalidate. So if I click on validate, it says validates this container and all of its subcomponents. Validating a container means laying out its subcomponents, layout related changes such as setting the bounds of a component or adding a component to the container. Invalidate the container automatically. Note that the ancestors of the container may be invalidated also, right? So what does that mean? How do I validate? It says overrides validate and then in the component itself if I really wanted to go there. So that's what it does. So it kind of invalidates my component. So if I click on the component itself, I remove it. So I'm going to talk about it as the component name. So if I was going to add it and remove it, or I wanted to remove a component for the component pane, let's try this out. So let's not do it here because that doesn't make any sense for now. Let's leave this alone. This is still broken, but we're going to fix it. But let's say I wanted to remove a component that's already been added. Like for example, I want to remove my to-do box, the combo box, right? Can I do it like this? Right underneath the add, I want to put a remove. So I'm going to put this underscore content pane dot remove, and then this dot underscore the combo box that I want, which is to do combo box. Can I do this? And let's see what it does. Will it remove it as I'm rendering the scene, right? And if this is correct, what's going to happen is it's going to add it and then immediately remove it. So we're not going to see it. Let's see if that's true. So we're going to go back into testing it. Let's just test it and see what it does. Yeah, it's gone, right? Okay, so that's good. So that means it adds it and removes it. So we have a method to remove an object, a specific object. Let's try and remove the this age text field. So we're not going to call another one. So we're going to kind of copy this one instead of the combo box. Just as a test, I want to remove it like this by calling the object itself, right? So I'm going to run that one. Let's see if I can. Oh, there's errors. Okay. What are the errors? So I added an extra field. Okay, an extra parentheses. Let's try this out again. So run it, and then my age text field is gone, right? So it does work that I can put in as many as I like, right? So 2, 3, and notice how this doesn't generate anything right now, right? Because it was working before when I was adding them in there, but now this thing isn't working. Let's see why, right? And let's not remove it. So this has removed it. Let me just show you something here for a second. So I'm not going to remove it. And now let's run that again. So I'm not removing. I'm going back and click 2, 3, and 4, and it's still not adding new ones now. Something's wrong, right? How come? What changed between what we did before and what we're doing now, right? To take this away. So removing definitely removes the field. That's what it does, right? Which we can use down here. And we added this index, right? This list in our, this to-do box, this to-do combo box. That's what we're doing, right? Now, last day it worked, right? When we added this in, and just to do a system.out, so we know it's working. We're going to say system.out.println as an example, and we're going to put in a, to-do combo box. Event, that's what it is, that we're kind of responding to. And we're going to save that and then run it again and see if that causes an issue, right? So then we have to take a look at those things down here. So if I go back to the console for a second, and I'm running this thing, if I go here and I put 2, I have a to-do combo box event. So that's triggering. If I click me, it says clicked. If I do something like this and enter, it does that. These all these events are working right now. But somehow, right, my little trick to add these things in here, right, it's gone. So how's that possible, right? There's only a couple things I changed, by the way. All right, well, it says my selected index, right? So to do combo box that get selected index, that's the first thing I got to check. So let's put in here underneath this, right? Depending on what my selected index is, that's the one I want to show. So, because otherwise it's never going to get to this for loop, right? Which would be a problem. So let's try this out. So I'll say something like this underscore to do combo box dot get selected index. Get selected index, right? Which is what I want to pump out now to the screen. So I want to know what selected index. Every time I click the button, and just for now, I'm going to comment these lines out just so that way we don't have any conflict, right? Just going to comment all those out for a second. We'll come back to that. So again, I'm going to go slow because people didn't understand what I was doing before. So first I want to see that I'm able to click in the combo box. And let's try this out. All right, so there's some errors. What are the errors? Where are the errors? There's no errors. Let's run this again. Always launch without asking. Well, we're going to open this one up and open this one up again and see where the hell the errors are, right? Because I think, did I miss something? Oh, yes, it would be. This would have to be commented out as well because that's part of the loop, right? And let's just go here and run this now, and hopefully we'll get this little thing. Okay, cool. So I want to click on this thing and click 2. So that's the selected index, right? 2. And select this one, 3, and then 4, and then 5. These are selected, the one that says selected index. That's interesting. And I want to go 1 again. That's 1. So I know this is how many I want. So every time I come in here, this number is going to change, right? So that's one thing. That means I'm only going to have X number of items in my list at any time. I'm only going to have X number of items that I want to have. So I need to do a bunch of different things. One is when I come in here the first time, I wipe away whatever's in there in the first place. So I kind of clear out the array. And there's some tricks to do this, right? I want to almost like clear out almost like a subcontainer area, right? Because right now I'm adding it to my main content pane. That's what's being added, right? The trick to make this happen, remember, because with games and with applications, it's all tricks, okay? It's all tricks. So imagine I have this content pane right here, right? It's an imaginary content pane. I haven't added it in, but I'm going to. How do I add another subcontainer in here on top of the container where everything else is going to be contained? So when I click this button, it's going to add stuff to that container. And every time I click that button, it's going to wipe that container out and put it back. That's what I want to do. It's just a trick, right? So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, let's go back to our designer. And we want to put a container in here to hold everything else, almost like a subcontainer of this thing, right? I'm not going to use a grid bag layout or any one of these other layouts. This is absolute layout we've got going on. It's not that, right? It's a container. So almost like another Jpanel, right? Is what we want to kind of add in. There's also a scroll pane. That might be something else we might think about doing. Remember we talked about how us adding in as many as we want in here without going to the bottom of the screen, right? So let's do that. So let's kind of add a scroll pane in here. So if I click on, first of all, I got to click on the scroll pane and I got to go over. And if you notice, it kind of positions it somewhere. So I want to kind of position it right under here, like this, right? And then what I want to do is resize it. So I want to make the scroll pane kind of the bottom part of my screen. There it is. It almost looks like a subcontainer inside my container, right? Inside my scroll pane. So this scroll pane, we're going to name something, right? And we better make it private again. And we're going to call it underscore. And this is going to be my to-do scroll pane because I'm going to put a bunch of my to-dos in there, my to-do list, right? So yours are going to be courses or whatever you're going to put in there. So we're going to call this to-do scroll pane, right? Okay, so this is my to-do scroll pane. And let's go back to my code for a second, my source code, as we plan this out. Notice how, again, I'm adding in a scroll pane with a set bounds. We're going to modify these bounds to make them more even a little bit. And as we go to the top, notice also that the scroll pane is a local variable that's inside of my add UI components method, right? Which makes no sense. I want to have access to it outside of this method, right? So I'm going to make it as a private variable in here, right? That's what I've been doing the last little while. So let's get it. Let's get our scroll pane and get this piece here, and we'll kind of just copy it. the way it is, go to the top of our file where we see our combo box and other items. These are all of our instance variables, and actually all of these things, they are private instance variables. And we're going to put in private first, and then kind of copy and paste. So there it is. So this is called private Scrollpane to do Scrollpane. And what is a Scrollpane anyway, right? Anyone have an idea? Let's think about the name, Scrollpane. It'll be scrolling, right? So you can actually have a container that scrolls, so even if there's more objects, hint, hint, something that you might want to use in your own little thing, right? Where you have more than one object or unlimited number of objects, it'll continue to scroll forever, right? So yeah, you can have access to those objects. Okay, remember, we have to have the objects that we add in, they have to be accessible somehow on in the class scope, right? And remember that the objects that we're adding into the class scope right now are not accessible to the class scope the way we added them in before. Why? Why were they not accessible before? Think about the things I've commented out. The stuff I commented out made an array list here, right? And what it's doing is it's making it a new array list, but it's also just doing it here in this local scope, right? So that means this array list, text field array list, is not accessible outside of this scope. In order for me to make this array list J text field of J text field type available, I've got to make this an array list that's available in the class scope, right? So that's another requirement I'm going to have. Let's leave it alone for now, right? Because we want to kind of modify this little piece of code here, right? And what I want to do is back up here where we're building our UI, right? In our method that I'm accessing, which is called add UI components. That's the method that I'm going to be adding this new scroll pane. Now, obviously, this I don't want to re-declare it. That's what this line would do here. I want to just use it. So because now it's part of our class scope. So this to do scroll pane is a new Jscrollpane. That's what it is. And this to do scroll pane, here's my set bounds. So it's starting off at 97. That doesn't make any sense, eh? 100. At least 100, right? And it's going to be down to 122. So y is 122. That makes no sense. I want to make it to at least 120, right? And then, so that's the container itself. And then the width and the height, I got to watch because I don't want to go outside of my container size. So let's go back to my design view for a second, save everything. Go back to my design view. And let's see what it renders. So here it is. It's kind of tight on this side. So when I click this, notice how 197 is right at the edge. Maybe that's not necessary to go that far. And I can do a manual adjustment here, right here in design view, and go, let's say, to 190 for the width. And that's pretty good. And maybe 150 is okay for the height. I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm going to hide these advanced options, by the way, because we don't need them right now. Okay, here's something. It says the horizontal scroll bar is horizontal scroll bar. If I hover over it, right? There's different options here for horizontal and vertical scroll bar, right? And we're going to get into this later on. One of the other things is a tooltip text. If I want to put that in, there's also a viewport border, which adds a border around the viewport. And note that the border isn't set on the viewport directly. The J viewport doesn't support the J component border property. All right, so it doesn't have a border by itself, if you notice, but it is here. So what I'm going to do is when I click this button, what I want, and let's move this up now a little bit so it makes more sense. I'm going to see if I can move it so it's a proper location. And again, notice how it's at X is 5, like this one. So just aligning things by eye here. And then Y is 122. Obviously, we're going to make this at 120, right? Just aligning this little box here, right? Notice how there's a 1 in here right now. So that if there's a 1, it should read it and put 1 in there, right? And it can't be exactly where it is right now. If you notice right now, if I was going to put an object that's inside of this scroll, this to-do list, I'm probably going to be, the first thing I need to add in here is some kind of label that says, here's my to-do list, right? So let's add a label in there. I'm not going to dynamically add it. I want it to be added in automatically. Now, this is good and bad. If I don't add it dynamically, right, that means I'd have to add it manually later. Maybe I should just add it manually. right? So just to position it, so to get a position of where I'd like to start it, and then I'll take it away again, I'm just going to put it in there temporarily as I build my UI. So I'm going to take a J label, right? And then I'm going to, if you notice, I can click it here, but I can also put it in here now, right? And notice also how there's column header. Here's my column header. And on the left, there's a row header, right? So here's my row number if I want to. And there's each of my, this is the viewport itself, where I'm going to put stuff. This is in the viewport section is where it's going to be positioned. So there's some interesting stuff here. We need to get information about these different positions, because inside of this Jscrollpane, right, there are some differences than the way we do it with our absolute positioning. All right, this is not absolute position anymore, right? So if I go up here to my column header, this is where I want to put that label. I want to put it in there, and we're going to rename this thing. This is going to be just we're going to call it the to-do label. Right, so we're going to say something like underscore, just for now. We may not make it an underscore, but to-do label. That's what it's going to be, right? And my text is going to say this is my to-do list, right? My to-do list, right? So I'm going to say my to-do list. Almost things like I need to do. Okay, cool. It's my to-do list. And notice how it says horizontal alignment leading, right? It also talks about some other things, Java Swing, label component, and all this kind of stuff. And it gives me a, it doesn't give me the same location information that I would normally have for the other stuff. Like normally I have X and Y coordinates out here, but in here I don't have that, because my layout is a different layout than an absolute layout in here, right? Vertical alignment, it says center, and so on, right? Okay, let's take a look and see what this looks like, you know, in code, right? Because I want to see what I've done here when I added my to-do list. So here's my to-do label. It's a local variable, you know, what it's going in, and then it says my label. There's my name, my to-do list, and it says to-do scroll pane. This is interesting. Set column header view to-do label. So I'm actually using a different method, my to-do scroll pane, to add in this object. Okay, we're going to get back to this in a second to see if to-do scroll pane is what, or the scroll pane is what I want to use, right? Because that might be an issue for me to dynamically add stuff. Let's go back. So that's one thing. The other thing is I want to add stuff in the viewport, right? So I want to add in, just as a test, I want to add in a text field, right? So I'm going to take a J text field, and I'm going to click around here, and you can see that I can add it here. I can add it here, or I can add it in here in the viewport. Let's click on the viewport itself and see what happens. It's massive, right? My whole text field just like took up the entire screen here, right? It says columns 10, which I don't want. I want like one column, and which is kind of weird, right? So it's just one to do, you know, to one label that I'm adding in, and it doesn't give me access to change, you know, the width of the label or anything else, because it's dynamically adding it in based on the layout manager. The layout manager is now, we're now using a, you know, the component. Notice also how it says there's other drop modes I can use, right, for my text field. Let me just undo this for a second, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because you guys are like, what is he talking about? Let's run this thing and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to kind of run this thing and see what you got. So it's just this text field that's in here, right? But it took up the whole space. I don't want that, right? That's just not right, right? So I need to make it so it's just like the size of these ones from a control perspective. How do I add that in? So let's get rid of that. Let's undo and undo again, and then no more text fields, right? And even though this component is absolutely sized, right, by, you know, the size I have over here, the stuff in here obviously is not, which might cause us to have a problem, right? I'm just saying.
You could add another panel inside.
I could. That's a very good point. But the thing, then it wouldn't scroll, would it?
Still scroll.
No, but I'm saying the panel wouldn't grow. The panel would be fixed unless I made the panel grow according to my stuff. So that's another thing I would have to think about. My vertical scroll bar, right? My vertical scroll bar is just, and there's a horizontal scroll bar that's in here, right? But that's, let me go to my advanced section and see what else I have in here as options. So auto scrolls is false. Auto scrolls is false, right? My border is the type of border that I want. My default cursor, I can change that. I can see if it's enabled or not. I can put it on focus or not. And if I scroll down, right, go all the way down where verify input when and visible, there's nothing really that tells me from a layout manager perspective what kind of layout manager it'll be. Take a look at the hierarchy so we can see what we're talking about here. Here's my to-do scroll pane. This is my content pane, right? My content pane has a layout that's absolute. I can choose that layout, right? My to-do scroll pane does not have a layout, right? See that the to-do scroll pane doesn't have, it's just a variable, but there's no layout. I don't have a layout that I can go to and go, hey, what's my layout, right? Doesn't have that option. Do you see? So how do I add to this thing, and where do I add to it? First of all, let's take a look when I added my, I'm going to add my text field back in there just for a second. Let's add this back in. And I'm just going to just drag and drop here. So there's my text field. Notice it's massive again. Right, there it is. And let's see what it looks like in code. So I'm going to go back to code, and I've added my text field, and it says set viewport view text field. What other things can I do with my text field? I can set columns, so I can go text field dot, and I can also set bounds, right? So what if I try that? What if I try and set bounds so that it's the same size as my other ones, right? So it's like, you know, let's say my x coordinate will be 5, my y coordinate is going to be 5. Bear with me here when I say 5, 5, and so on. Because remember, my text field is added into my set viewport view. That's what it is. My set viewport view is my text field, right? It's interesting. And then I have my width and a height. Let's make the width 20 or 30 and 30 just to see what it does. So I want to kind of set the bounds kind of like in here. And let's see what it does when I run it now, right? Does it do anything? And if you notice, it doesn't do a darn thing, right? Because it just takes up my entire field of view. I can keep typing forever, and it'll keep typing for an ever and ever, right? Because my text field takes up the whole thing. Did you find a solution? Did you try something else?
I used a thing, a panel.
Inside here?
Yeah.
And then, does it work?
Yeah, works for me.
All right, let's check it out. Let's try that out. So instead of a text field, let's get rid of this text field because that's just not going to work, right? It's inside my view pane. The reason why I put it in there is because, no, instead of, you put it inside the scroll pane, right?
Yeah, panel inside the scroll.
Yeah, so let's go back in here and let's go into this thing here. So now here's my to-do list, and now I'm going to take another Jpanel, right, which is another container type.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we want to explore these things for a second to see what it does. So here's my thing. Now I don't want to put it here in my row. I want to put it over here in my viewport, this little pane, right? So here it is. And now it takes up the entire space, right? Now this is another panel. And obviously I want to call this the to-do panel, right? So let's just rename it properly. Notice that I do have a layout. I do have a layout that I have, and I can make it absolute again if I want to, right? So let's do that. So we'll call it underscore to-do panel. We have to set these containers up, otherwise we won't have control, right? And we'll change the layout from a flow layout to absolute layout, just so we have the same kind of thing. Now, here's a question. When I start aligning stuff here, notice how my bounds are 0, 0, 0 for a second. My border is no border, but my foreground is there's no foreground. It's black for my colors, for my the typing that I have in there. And I want to put other stuff in there now. Where is it going to go? Notice on the hierarchy, we have a to-do scroll pane, my to-do label that's inside the scroll pane. That's not going to move, right? That's just going to be in there. But this panel, this to-do panel, is the one that I could wipe away, right? I can remove all components from my to-do panel, right? Safely and not kill the rest of my layout, right? That's not what I want to do, right? My layout shouldn't be affected by what I do inside here, right? Okay, cool. Well, let's try and add something in here and see where it goes. And I'm just going to do it, and we'll fix up the variable names later. All right. So I'm going to kind of go into my components again. So I'm going to close these ones off, containers, layouts, go into my components, and click another JLabel or text field. Let's do a text field. And I'm going to kind of drag it into there now. If you notice, I'm going to kind of put it in here. Take a look at the X and Y coordinates here. 28 and 33. But when I come out here, it becomes 124 and 3. How come? How come it's here? It's a different coordinate system than it is over here. How come?
Relative to the
It's relative to the container, right? So the container is inside of another container, right? But I'm putting in this field, and I got this way I can position my fields exactly where I want them, so they're kind of in the middle, right? This is my to-do list. So I'm going to kind of populate my first text field in there, right? Here's my text field, right? Notice that my text field, my x and y coordinates are way different than these ones. And the reason for that is because, and my bounds are also different too. My bounds, my x, y, my width, and my height, they're all different. I'm going to make them the same in a second. But in here, if you notice, in this field, right, here my x and y coordinates for my new label are 5 and 6. And here, my x and y coordinates are 27 and 6. And you might be confused by this, but the local coordinate system is the one that's inside of this to-do panel. That's inside of my, that's going to appear inside of my, my to-do scroll pane, right? Let's keep on adding some more of these. I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of these different items and see what happens when I copy and paste a couple more, maybe even one more. See if I can do that. Copy and paste one in there like this. And see what happens when I kind of put this in here and move it down a little bit. So kind of move it down. See if it scrolls. So 'cause that's what I want to see. So my actual object is inside the container, but it's outside the visible field of view. All right, so let's try this out and see what it looks like, just from a test perspective. I'm just gonna run this thing. Okay, cool. Well, there it is, and I want to get to it, but I can't. How come? Where's my scroll? How come my scroll doesn't work now? So I can't
set the,
scroll down, right?
the scroll panel to always.
So go back, go to my scroll panel right here. This is my scroll pane, right? And in here, you're talking about not the to-do panel, which is just a content panel, right? The scroll pane itself. Now that would be an advanced property, no?
Yeah, there's a setting somewhere. I think you can set the
To auto scroll, right? So from a scroll from false to true, right? And if you notice, there's other options here, right? Local, locale, name. You can do all kinds of extra features here. Visibility and so on, and vertical bars and the viewport border if I want to put that in. All right, so let's try this out now and see if that makes any changes. If it allows me to do auto scrolling, if it works. It still doesn't allow me to do that. I'm just following your instructions. I mean, come on. I can see there's something there, but how come it's not working?
set the vertical scroll bar to be always visible.
All right. I want to see how you're looking at. So here's my vertical scroll bar always, right? So I want to always have this vertical scroll bar on. Notice how it changed my layout. Yeah, my layout added this little piece here, right? And let me just kind of run that thing and see how it works, right? So my vertical scroll bar, and then now I have this, right? But I can't still get in there. How come I can't get in there? This is on, right? This is visible. If I make this bigger, by the way, you can control the size of this thing. I can't make this container bigger, and I can't scroll up and down in here. Why? Well, there's nothing to scroll, right? Because I only have one big container in here, this one. So I'm trying to use it, but this is the only container that's in there. It's not like I have more than one container, right? I'm just saying. We're just experimenting here, just like if you were going to build it with me. What to do, right? All right. What about going back to layouts? I like the idea that you had, and I have this absolute layout, right? Can I apply an absolute layout somehow to my scroll pane? Is that possible? So if I was to kind of take my layout, my absolute layout, click it, and then click on my scroll pane, is that possible? You notice how it's not. Here I can click my to-do pane. See how my to-do pane lights up with green? And if I go into different areas here, my content pane, that lights up green. When I go to my scroll pane, no green. It's red, right? Because my scroll pane isn't absolute. It uses a different kind of layout. Let's try this again. So I'm going to click flow layout now and see if that works. So if I click flow layout, no. Grid layout, No. Border layout, you know, none of that works. None of it seems to work when I do my stuff. Form layout. None of the layouts seem to be working at all. Group layout, right? I can't target that thing with a layout, right? So we're going to go back to the documentation for a second so we can take a look. So if I go absolute positioning with a scroll layout, a Scrollpane Java, right? And see how we can do that. If you were going to try and do that, use here it is. Use absolute layout inside a Scrollpane. How do we do that, right? And there's a question here on Stack Overflow, and they're usually kind of good. It says, I suggest you try. It says changing the layout manager of the actual Jscrollpane does not make sense. If you wish to use absolute layout within your application, you typically call the set layout on a container class, such as a Jpanel, right? In order to position child components within it using absolute positioning. I suggest that you try call set layout null to the Jpanel contained within the Scrollpane, as I think this is what you're trying to do, rather than use the Jpanel directly, subclass it, and have your subclass implement the Scrollable Interface, which provides additional information to the Jscrollpane regarding the optimal scrollable viewport size. So I don't want to add a scrollable. I don't want to add a Scrollpane. I want to add an interface. I want to kind of create my own Scrollpane or my own Jpanel, if you will. And we're going to use the Scrollable Interface in order for us to do that. Well, okay, that's interesting. I like how that works out. So how do we create our own little class, right? Because the class that we're making right now is a generic Jpanel, and we want to make our own Jpanel with our own absolute positioning and all that kind of stuff. That makes more sense, right? Because we're trying to, we want, what we want to try and do is do the right thing here, but we're not really accomplishing what I want. So let's get rid of all this stuff. So I know we did a lot of work, but don't worry about that. We're just going to get rid of this thing. We'll say delete. It's going to delete all that, and we're going to delete this big piece here too as well. This thing. That's why I didn't adjust any of the variables. Notice I didn't do that, right? For a good reason. So how do I do that? Well, one is, here's my layout manager. My layout manager can't really use, I can't use some kind of panel that goes right here. It's impossible for me to do, right? So we just go back for a second and go back to Eclipse to sort my source code here, right? And again, I want to save before I go back because otherwise it'll mess up my source code. And as I scroll, you can see that it's modified everything back to my content pane add, my to-do combo box, which is cool. That's all I have. So how do I add that in? Can someone step me through this, please? Because I want to see how you guys are good with this kind of stuff, and someone other than you. How about Fahim? Do you have an idea of how I would make a subclass of my Jpanel? Because I might ask you to do that on a test, right? Think about it. If you're think about the same things that we do when we create stuff, you know. Sorry? The Jpanel class? Okay, so let's try this out. So here, let's move this out, right? So let's think about this. We want to create a custom component that we don't have, something that's a Jpanel that has a layout plus it has scrollable features, right? So we're going to do this. We're going to go to my default package here, and we're going to right click and I'm going to go new, right? And I'm going to go class. Okay? And now the thing is, from my name, the name of my class, it's going to be some kind of my name that I want, which is my, kind of like my own scrollable Jpanel, which is what it's going to be, right? So that's what I'll call it. I'll call it scrollable Jpanel, right? Because that's what it is. It's my custom class, right? All right, cool. Now I don't want to just inherit it from this superclass, right? I want to browse in my superclasses, right? And I want to choose Jpanel, right? So I know it's Jpanel is where I want to grab. So there it is. And press OK. So that's the first thing. It is a Jpanel. That's the first thing. Next thing is there's an interface component that I want to click and add, and I want to see if what it says is true. If I kind of put in scrollable, well, look what it has. It says scrollable pane peer, scrollable pane constants, scrollable bar peer, and scrollable, which is probably what I want. This one, scrollable. Right, and press OK. So what is this doing when I add in a scrollable interface, right? Well, here's one. I want to definitely add my constructors for my superclass. I definitely want my inherited abstract methods, so I don't have to figure that out on my own, right? And you know what? I'm going to press finish. So it's going to be called my Scrollable Jpanel, which is going to exist as its own file. Whoa! Look at all this awesome stuff I just got. All right. So one is, here's my constructor. Here's my constructor. And here's my scrollable Jpanel. Here's my layout manager. So there's two, take a look, two of these constructors. One, the empty constructor, right? Do I really need this one? We'll see in a second. The other one is my scrollable layout manager that has a layout that I pass to it. So in other words, it would be absolute. This is neat. We need this piece. My scrollable Jpanel, which is another one with a Boolean, is double buffered or not. I can choose if it's double buffered. Here's another one with a layout and is double buffered. And let me ask you a question. Who knows what double buffered would mean? Any idea? If you've done any kind of game programming on the console, not if you're doing it with Unity or something, what it does is double buffering and makes it so that the refresh rate is faster, especially if you're drawing in that panel. If I'm drawing in that panel, I want to definitely double buffer my panel, so that way it has almost like a memory of what I'm doing, and it has, especially if it's a real-time draw that I want to do, I want to double buffer. Don't need that here. So these are a bunch of constructors that it's created by hand, right, or just by default. Let's keep going. Scroll down. Here's an override, a couple overrides. Now some of these overrides we might want to use because we're inheriting from my the stuff that I'm using. So one is this dimension, which is get preferred scrollable viewport size. Okay, here's another one. Get scrollable unit increment. Oh, okay. Here's another one. Get scrollable block increment. And then here's a get scrollable tracks view with viewport width. And another one is the get scrollable tracks viewport height. All right. So these are all the different things that I have to override if I want to make a scrollable interface. Right. Lots of stuff. Lots of work actually. Right. One thing I don't need. I know I need a layout manager. I don't care if it's double buffered, and I don't want a double buffered layout manager. So I want to get rid of some of these other ones. So I'm going to get rid of this one, because these are optional anyway, and this one. And I'm probably going to send a layout in here, and I'm probably never going to ask for, or I don't need to call the empty constructor for it to do something by itself as an overload. So I'm just going to get rid of this one too, just so it kind of simplifies some of the stuff we see. But these ones, my friends, these ones, these overrides, right? The reason why they're there is because, and this is a question for you guys, smart with inheritance and polymorphism. Is it optional that we override these ones, or must we override? Which one is the option? Is it optional overrides, or we have to override? Anybody? Must is the answer. The reason why is because we're implementing a scrollable interface, and because we're implementing a scrollable interface, we have to override the if I look at the scrollable interface as an example, if I just hover over it, it says an interface that provides information to a scrollable container like Jscrollpane, a complex component that's likely to be used as viewing a Jscrollpane viewport or other scrolling container should implement this interface. All right. See also JViewport, Jscrollpane, Jscrollbar. All right. So scrollable is what I want to do. This scrollable interface, and I want to look it up in my my docs. Okay. So if I look down here in my Eclipse, I have something called Java docs, right? And this is the exact same thing. Now that I scroll here, you see that it's over here, right? This Java Swing Scrollable. Now, if I click on Scrollpane, it talks about the Scrollpane in great detail. Take a look what it does. So it talks about the Scrollpane, how the column header works, how the viewport works, in my view, how to implement this thing, the Jscrollbar, the JViewport, the scrollable. Oh, there's scrollable, and it takes me back here. So what I want to do is I want to look at the scrollable interface and what are the methods I need to override and what do I got to put in them, right? Because I want to kind of view, the options. One to note is this Jscrollpane, what it requires when I instantiate it, right? Because it's going to have, when I put the scrollable interface, I need to kind of add in something. I got to call different methods of that interface, right? So how do I do that? Let's go back here. So scrollable, the scrollable interface for Swing. That's what I got to look up. So I'm going to go back to the library online and go scrollable interface Java Swing, right? Scrollable. And it says dimension, here's modifier and type. Get preferred scrollable viewport size. It says returns the preferred size of the viewport for a view component, okay, with a dimension. Here's an integer. Get scrollable, these are the methods that I must override, all right? Get scrollable block increment, which is a rectangle with a visible rect and orientation, so on. It says components that display logical rows or columns should compute the scroll increment that will completely expose one block of rows or columns, depending on the value of, and this is what we may want to use because of the orientation, right? So what's the scrollable increment? So when I actually scroll down, I want to see a whole row. I don't want to see like half a to-do list item, right? So that's what this will do. This get scrollable block increment, and it's going to be a rectangle, which is of and also an orientation and a direction, which we have to kind of figure what those are. That's one thing we may want to tackle here. Okay, cool. Other things. Get scrollable track viewport height. Return true if viewport should always force the height of this scrollable to match the height of the viewport. Match the height of the viewport, okay? And return true if a viewport should always force the width of the scrollable to match the width of the viewport. And then it says int get scrollable unit increment. Component that display logical rows or columns should compute the scroll increment, just like the other one, right? Scrollable unit, and this is just the same size. So let's see if there's an implementation example that we can use. So int, here's the get, by the way, these are all the different methods details, right, that they kind of outlined here. And if you notice, it says get preferred size is a J component. JComponent.getPreferredSize is where they recommend that you look, because this is inherited from get preferred scrollable viewport sizes, right? So lots of little things here. Orientation, and this is orientation is either swing constants vertical or swing constants horizontal. What kind of orientation do I want that I got to set up here? Right, so that's what it'll ask for that. That I'm overriding that piece, right? So it's either swing constants vertical or swing constants horizontal. Direction, less than 0 to scroll up left, greater than 0 for down right. Right, down and right. Okay, so that's the direction. So depending on what I put, vertical or horizontal, I definitely want a vertical orientation for my scroll bars. That's what this thing would be. And I want to go down, so it'd be kind of something that's greater than 0, right, for my direction. Okay, returns. The unit increment for scrolling in specified direction, and the value should always be positive. And this is what it would. This is see also this one as an example, right? So if I clicked on that one for the unit size, it'll go into more detail. I don't want to do that. But this is the API documentation when we kind of look at different objects, right? So here's get scrollable tracks viewport width, and then it says returns true if viewport should always force the width of the scrollable to match the width of the viewport, right, and so on. Okay, so how do we implement this thing, right? That's the question that you guys have in your minds. I have all these things. All right, the question is this. If I was to, these are things I must override. Well, I've overrode them, right? These are all the things right now I can use. They're all inside my new scrollable panel, Jpanel. They have these options for a dimension. As an example, the get scrollable unit increment, right? Which is a rectangle that's visible with an orientation and a direction. I have that. I haven't done anything with them though, right? So this right now it returns 0. So how do I set these up? How do I set these up? And then if you notice, if I hover over them, it says override components that display logical rows and columns. And what I want to see is an example of a scrollable, right, to use as a template for myself, because it's too difficult for me to figure out what Java is trying to do. Okay, so let's go back. So I want to do this implement a scrollable interface. So I'm going to kind of go back over here and say implement scrollable Jpanel, which is what I want to do if I can find that Java, if it's possible. May not be, right? Scrollable Jpanel. All right, so here's how to do that. And they have some suggestions. It says you have to use Jscrollpane and then call, that's what they suggest, and then call the set viewport component, right? You don't have to implement scrollable. Jpanel is already scrollable, right? Well, is that true? Is Jpanel already scrollable? Let's go back and check to see if that's true. Because if it's true, then if I go back to my example window and click Design, right? And I click on my Jpanel, which is this whole thing. Here's my Jpanel. And notice how my foreground, tab order, and tooltip text and all this kind of stuff is here. That's true. We might have an answer, right? Because then if I open this up, let me see if what my advanced properties are. And location, name, tab order, size, verify input when, visible is true. I don't see that it's scrollable. Do you? Right? Because otherwise it would give me that option, right? It would give me optional things for scrolling, which I don't have here at all. So this, I think that's incorrect. Right? So that's the one thing. So it's not a scrollable one. Now, you're going to ask the question, how do I use my object? Like notice here's how this is the default, right? But how do I use my object, my custom object here in the view? And the answer is you probably don't. Right? It's not like I can use a custom object here in my components. I don't have a custom component that I can drag and drop off in my palette. Let's take a look at that. So if I look at my palettes for component, there is no custom, right? JGoodies, an AWT component, there's a menu, there's swing actions, but there is no custom component that I can kind of drag and drop into my view because it won't know what to do, right? I have this GRE, I can choose Nimbus, the different kind of look and feel that I want. All those things I can do, but I can't put in something in here that's a custom component, right? So I'm going to have to test it out on my own, which is kind of a negative. All right, let's see how we're going to do this. So we need to position it at this exact position, which is, if you notice how we had 80 and we want at least 45 added onto 80, so that's at least 125. Where x is equal to 100 and y is equal to 145. Yeah?
There's an option that says auto scroll to false.
For which?
Under,
Jpanel?
Yeah.
Let's see if that
class.
auto scroll to false. Oh, here.
Yeah.
Let's put auto scroll to true. If that's true, auto scrolls to true. And if this is my Jpanel, then let's just test it out here, Tim. And if you might save the day here to save us all that custom coding. I could do it, but we'd be here for the rest of the session. Just not coding up our Jpanel with scrollable, right? So let's take one of these and copy and paste it. And we're going to put it so that's just down below the screen like this. Right? There it is. If what you say is true, right? And let's just press play. Yeah? I like it. I like your idea. It's there, but I can't scroll nothing. Right? Nothing's allowed me to go down in there. Right? I love your idea, though. It's great. It's fantastic. But it doesn't quite do what it asks us to do. What you need to do. Okay. The other thing to check would be how to scroll in a Jpanel. Before we go on, maybe one more check, right? Scrolling Jpanel, because the thing is, sometimes there'll be other options. How to make a Jframe or Jpanel scrollable? It says, before adding your Jpanel, put in a Scrollpane first. Okay, no problem. And then my Jscrollpane scroll and use Scrollpane panel. and then frame add. I'm adding it to frame, and what's frame? Oh, add frame, frame add scroll, and so on. Jframe would be the Jframe, because I think they made a Jframe up here, where the Jframe itself. Okay, so that's something that's different. So maybe we were on the right track, but we used it wrong. So here's my Jpanel, and what we do is make a scroll pane, but we add the Jpanel to the scroll pane, and then we can make it scroll. Okay. It says, don't you have to do frame add scroll? You mean to add the Jscrollpane, not to the Jpanel directly, right? Maybe there's some other options here. That's one thing. So we made a Jpanel first, right? How to use scroll panes. And here's my Jscrollpane, my text area. Here's my new text area. And then set preferred size. See, that set preferred size is part of our the scroll pane. Set preferred size to a new dimension. And then add my scroll pane and with a border layout, right? My scroll pane with a border layout center. And that's being added into the Jframe that's kind of creating, right? So when I add this dot add, I don't just add the scroll pane. I add it in with a layout, a border layout or whatever. That doesn't make sense to myself. This is what it would look like. Here's my scroll pane layout. I wonder if they have the complete. See, I want to find a nice template for you guys so that it doesn't look so crazy, right? Because I can do it, but the thing is, like I said, I can code it by hand, but it's going to be a pain in the ass to kind of code by hand. And I'd love for them to have a whole solution. Here's get scrollable unit increment. Look at what they're doing here. This is exactly what I was talking about, right? Where they're overriding the scrollable, right? And this is what I was talking about. See how it's int, and then what you're doing is you're returning the current position, and with a maximum increment of +1, they're actually pre-coding or custom coding their scrollable, right? So it's kind of complex to do this kind of thing. Let's do it one more time. See if there's anything else. That's how to make my Jpanel scrollable. Here we go. One more time. The Jframe content pane is a simple Jpanel with no layout. The code looks like this. How do you do it? And this is the wrong place to look, but it looks like what they're doing here is a scroll pane that I'm passing in the content pane. And then what I'm saying is set my content pane to my scroll pane. And then my scroll pane, which is
making the whole window
dot content pane. I'm adding my content pane to my scroll pane, and then my content pane dot add. I'm adding stuff to my content pane, which is what I wanted to do. This is what I want to do this here, right? Well, my frame itself, my frame it has all this extra stuff. My set content pane to my scroll pane. So when I set content pane to my scroll pane is the outer container, and then I add everything else underneath that. And my scroll pane is equal to content pane. Scroll pane, content pane. This is the Jpanel. Okay. Let's try it out. We'll try it out in code as opposed to up here, because that's more challenging to do, right? So we'll do it like this. We'll go back to the code view, and we'll look at what we want to try and do, which is in here where after we've set our to-do combo box, we want to set up the our scroll pane, and we have to have another content pane. So we know how this works, right? Just like before. So if we know we have to add the scroll pane, let's do it really quickly by adding it inside this pane again. So go back to container, scroll pane, and then not split pane, Jscrollpane, add it in right here like this by 100 and let's say 135. There we go. Then drag this scroll pane in here so that it's not quite maybe 190. If I can realign this thing better, I'll fix it later on. There it is. And then what I want to do is I want to add the J Content Pane to this thing. So in here, I'm going to call this my to-do scroll pane, like I said. So underscore to-do scroll pane. And we'll change the X and Y coordinates so that it's 190. And my height will be 135. There we go. So it's a little bit adjusted. There's my to-do scroll pane. And then what I want to do is encode where my to-do scroll pane is here. And I'm adding my content pane to my scroll pane. I'm adding this in. I'm going to add now my new Jpanel, which I'm going to put in there. So this is where I decide a new Jpanel. And I already have a definition for a Jpanel, which is, notice how I created up here. We're going to fix this up in a second. Here's my Jpanel, which is called the content pane, right? And what I want to do is I'm going to instantiate the Jpanel somewhere, right? Because otherwise, where is that going to be done? Well, if you notice, you know, I've got to do it somewhere, and it's probably going to be done inside the top of my add UI, right? So notice how it says content pane set layout null, right? That's the way I do it. But where do I define my content pane for the first time, right? So, because otherwise I don't have it. And here it is right here. This dot content pane is equal to new Jpanel with where it says my set border if I want it, a new empty border. I want that as just this piece. So this content pane is equal to new Jpanel. We're not going to call it the content pane. We're going to call this thing scroll pane, if you will, right? Or a scroll panel. Scroll panel, scroll pane. So let's try this out. So so type of Jpanel is equal to underscore. We'll leave the underscore in there because we're gonna kill it later, right? We'll say to do scroll panel, right, is equal to a new Jpanel object. And what I want to do is I want to assign my to-do scroll pane. So I'll say to-do scroll pane. And if you notice the example is if I want to add it or I want to set it, back to the example that I have online, like I've seen this before, when I do this new Jscrollpane, I want to set the content pane or the Jpanel to it when I do the new, right? Which is up here, right? So what I want is reverse this order. So I'm going to cut this, put it over here. So I declare it first. And then what I want to do is take this new Jpanel and I want to put it in here inside this item as one of our things. So I'll say this, so I'll call it, it won't be this, it'll be underscore to do scroll panel for now because I don't want to put it into my loop. Okay, good. So I've kind of done this thing right now. And then I'm going to add this to the pane. And then when I want to, I can add some stuff onto the scroll panel. Okay, let's see what it does in the design view, right? And then we'll fix this up. Let's try it out. Design view. Okay, let's see how it looks in my hierarchy. Okay, so there's my scroll pane, and there's my to-do scroll panel. My scroll pane and my scroll panel right here. Okay, cool. And then I want to add stuff in here. Okay, so I want to add stuff into this piece here, and following the model that we just saw, my content pane, which is my my Jpanel, right? My Jpanel is what I'm going to add a bunch of components. Component number 1, 2, 3, whatever I want, right? And I want to start adding them inside the screen, and I'm just going to just drag and drop to get a positioning for them, right? A bunch of them, and you know, see how it works. In fact, I'll just do it by hand and see how this makes any sense or any difference. One thing is my scroll pane itself, I've got to set the scrollable like we did last time, right? So we went to my horizontal scroll, and I want to kind of make it so that it's always on. If I want to move left and right, well, that's not what I want. I want to make my vertical scroll on. So go to vertical scroll, always on. I want to kind of turn that scroll bar on. So I know where it's going to be, right? And then what I want to do is I want to scroll up and down in here, right? Okay, I want to scroll up and down. One thing it didn't talk about in here is it didn't talk about how to scroll up and down, right? In terms of like once you've done this, once you've added stuff into the panel, you know how it works when I add my components, right? Because I can add as many components as I want in here. So let's drag and drop a text field again, because I like to use text fields as an example. Last time it didn't work for us. So I'm going to put it in there. Oh yeah, we have to set the layout type. Tom. Let's go back. And then let's go to my layout manager. My layout goes absolute layout. I'm going to kind of put it on top of my to-do scroll panel. Let's go back to source code so you see what it does. So here's my to-do scroll panel, which is just a Jpanel, right? And what I want to do is I want to make that the to-do scroll panel itself. Take a look how I made vertical policies for my to-do scroll panel, vertical scroll bar, and my set bounds. I set the bounds to do my pane. Here's my pane. Don't be confused by pane and panel, right? Here's my panel here. It's just reorganizing what it's showing, right? So I'm setting my layout to no. Okay, go back. Let's go back to my design view. Again, all the design view is helping us do is align how we're going to do it. Now, let's try and add a bunch of different items in here to see that we have the ability to scroll, right? So how would we do that? So I'm going to kind of, like I said, I'm going to go back, close these layouts in my containers, and start dragging and dropping some objects, like just to test it out. So there's one, and then copy and paste, copy, paste, 2, 3, 4. Be careful how I do this, because otherwise you won't have the ability to see. I'm going to put it outside of the screen, the viewable area. Right, so there it is. That's the bottom, the top of that scroll bar, right? You can see that it's there, right? So I've kind of added another text field. Let's add some more text fields. I'm going to kind of add another one, copy, and go here and paste another one. And maybe under here like this. Text field 5. It's going to add random locations, right? Well, let's undo that. We don't want that. We have to kind of specify the location of that one, so just get rid of it. But you see in the hierarchy what it looks like. It's like we're aligning stuff here in the hierarchy so we can put some stuff in there, right? All right, let's see how it looks when I actually run this thing. This is the big test for me so it actually scrolls, and I can't scroll worth crap. I can type stuff in here, but when it comes to going down in here, I can't see a goddamn thing, right? Anyone have any other results? Because so far, she ain't working for me, baby. Say that again? Yeah, pain in the ass option, you mean, right? What else? There must be a simpler way. We can't have a scrollable, a Jscrollbar, without the ability for us to do the scroll, right? How do I use Jscrollbar, right? It's impossible, right? And so we have to find that solution. So guys, let's take a short break. We'll look it up, and when you guys come back, we'll have the solution. Okay, so instead of us wasting our time.